of a screen each day? 5, 8, 10, or more? We're becoming more dependent on our technology in a 24/7 digital world. But what impact is all that screen time having on our eyes? With us today to talk about technology on our eyes and to offer some solutions is Dr. Stephanie Kirschbaum, a VSP Vision Care optometrist. Welcome, Dr. Kirschbaum.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me, what is all this screen time doing to our eyes?
You know, Cynthia, people don't often realize that what this technology is doing to harm our eyes, like on that one-day basis or even in the long run. The smartphones, the laptops, all computers, they decrease our blinking rate. So people are blinking about half of what they should be blinking. The eyes get very dry, and that can cause a real tired feeling and just kind of worn out. So it can be just that one day. That can also last a long time. It can end up being a problem that's a long-lasting chronic problem. Another thing we're just learning is there's a blue light that's given off by the smartphones and the laptops, and that blue light can be damaging in the long run. It can damage the tissue of the eye, but also it can affect our sleep patterns.
So we could actually be damaging our eyes.
Yes, over time especially. Children are at particular risk because they're starting even earlier with some of these fun tablets and smartphones, and they don't have the protection in their eye. There's a special pigment in the retina that protects us from this harmful blue light. And so nowadays they're starting younger and they can actually sit in front of these tablets for a long time. The games are fun, we don't think there's a problem there, but then they transition into school and using it for education and homework, and these children are really at risk for this long period of time throughout their life that they're being exposed, especially without protection when they're younger.
So Dr. Stephanie, what are some things that our digital devices are doing to our eyes?
You know, digital eye strain is that's the main one that's occurring, and people may not even realize it's an issue with them, but they're having strain with their eyes, they're having blurriness, and of course the dryness that we talked about. It's more common than carpal tunnel syndrome with adults at the workplace, and it's something that we need to let people know so that there are ways that we can remedy that. But digital eye strain is really a big problem with the use of technology nowadays. And it's not just something that, it may not be permanent, but it's not something that could be just that work day, but it can end up being more of a chronic problem that occurs over time.
So Dr. Stephanie, what do you do for your patients who show signs of digital eye strain?
Cynthia, there's actually several things that I do to recommend for my patients. The first thing I always do is I put them in a Unity computer lens. It not only helps to relax their focusing at the power that they're working at, but also it gives them more of a strain-free look at their computer that might actually have a glare on it. So what I recommend is a performance coating on the Unity computer lens, and the performance coating is an anti-glare coating. So one lens here I brought as a sample does not have the coating on it, and one does. And so it's pretty essential for anybody working on a laptop or a desktop or even a smartphone that they have the anti-glare performance coating on their lens. And by the end of the day, a person may not realize just how much strain is created from glare. The surfaces have a lot of glare. The other thing, we talked about the blink rate, that people don't realize they're not blinking enough when they're working on their technology devices. And I recommend a drop that's more pure, that doesn't have chemicals and preservatives. A lot of drops over the counter, it can actually be very confusing. But a lot of them have additives that when a person uses them throughout the day, it can actually hurt their eyes a little bit. So I like to use a drop that's very pure, and it will augment their own tears to make it a real comfortable situation when they don't blink enough. So I always recommend a really good quality lubricating drop. The other thing I recommend to patients is something called a 20-20-20 rule. And what that is when they've been working on their device for about 20 minutes, they take about 20 seconds to look about 20 feet away. So that 20 seconds allows them to blink and get their eyes lubricated again, maybe put some drops in. So the 20-20-20 rule is another thing I recommend to patients.
Dr. Stephanie, you mentioned the blue light. What does that do, and should we be concerned, or is this a fad?
Actually, it is a growing concern, the blue light. We're learning more and more about what these technologies will give off, and blue light is one of them we're learning about. It's also because we're spending more and more time in front of these devices all day long. It causes a real strain and stress on the visual system. I really like, for my patients, I always recommend a Unity lens with BlueTech protection. And I wear them in the office all day long when I'm in front of the computer, and my eyes, I've noticed by the end of the day, they don't have that kind of worn out feeling. So I really recommend that for my patients. children because they're spending more and more time in front of these devices and they may not have the protection in their retina from this harmful blue light. I really recommend it for children as well. People who might be at risk of having macular degeneration, the BlueTech in a Unity lens is really important, the BlueTech protection. And people who maybe don't wear any correction at all, or maybe they wear contact lenses, I will even recommend a Unity lens with the anti-glare and the BlueTech protection for them so that their eyes don't have that strain from all-day use. And it doesn't interfere with their sleeping. I really like my lens. It doesn't distort colors at all. It doesn't interfere with my depth perception. It's just a really good balancing lens that doesn't cause strain at the end of the day.
Do you have any other tips on how we can take care of our eyes in a computer-driven world?
Yes, actually, I think the patient, it's really imperative that they're honest and forthcoming with their doctor so that he or she may help them for their specific health and the habits of their computer use. So I have patients now who say, oh, I'm not on the computer at all anymore. Come to find out when I query them further. They're on their smartphone all day long practically. So the doctor can actually specify and make the best lens for them. And also it's really important to remember that 20-20-20 rule. It's kind of fun after about 20 minutes on the computer device to look at least 20 feet away for at least 20 seconds, given that full blink. Let the eyes relax.
Thank you, Dr. Stephanie. For more information, visit unitylenses.com.